Carl, everyone listening, this is a beautiful man that I met actually 3 weeks ago now. Yep. And so for anyone who's listening, basically tell them what it is you do, and we'll just jump into a conversation. Wherever it goes, it goes.
It goes, okay. Yeah, so presently I'm the development director for the St Vincent DePaul Society here in Naples. And we're a charity, a 501c charity that help basically all those in need. I think Naples, Collier County there's a perception about maybe our wealth or, what's really happening here. But there are a lot of people who do suffer. And I think currently, given the inflation status, we talk about affordable housing here. And we talk about a lot of people just being in some sort of financial or stress in their life. And we hope as a society that we can come in and support and help and, promote the community. Obviously, well-being is important for everybody, every member in a community, and it affects everybody. And I think that's a big focus for us in general in creating systemic change in people's lives, that there should be a long-term goal of, people moving forward. Everybody has dreams, everybody has expectations, and we just like to, make sure we can do our part in helping people on that path.
Yeah, definitely when I moved here in June, we're staying at the in-laws vacation place in basically it's just off Bonita Beach. So that is like how you think of Naples. It's that, these places look like hotels. So that's when we weren't chatting. I was listening to you speaking, and it was interesting to hear the other side of this area, which again, you said it, we don't think of you think of Naples, you think of
that's a great thing.
It's everything's well off, and I think every society has all types of people for sure. But it's funny, once you pointed out people living and struggling, it's like that, that orange car thing.
Right.
Like you see everyone who has orange car. I've been seeing now that you've brought my attention. I'm like, there is someone struggling on the side of the street.
Yeah, and homelessness is becoming a problem here as well.
In here in this area, is it very? Obviously compared to major cities and stuff, it's not at the same capacity.
Yeah.
But what do you tend to see with the people in this area that are struggling? What is the thing that's stopping them from getting back on their feet?
Yeah, I think affordable housing is really a top-line issue right now. Because if you can just do simple comparisons. So before the pandemic, if a family can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for maybe $1,600 a month, that same apartment today is probably over $3,000. So it's staggering, the increases. And then on top of it, again, inflation at presently at 8.5%. And then, and what people say is, but you can go anywhere and you can find a job. Yes, and there is no issue in finding jobs. Yeah. But even we hear people saying, I'm willing to pay $20, $21 an hour, and I still can't get people to come in the door, because you sit down and you do the math and it still just doesn't add up. So it is a very interesting dynamic for the community, right? Because like you see, you have all different layers of folks that intermingle, and we need to work together, et cetera. But when a portion of it can't even figure out how to function anymore, it obviously is going to affect everything else. So this great place where it's fun and you got great entertainment, great restaurants, whatever, well, we don't have people to serve anymore. So you don't get served as well, or you're waiting longer. And so things, start to change. And I think that's, right now, obviously, we're moving along well. The economy here in Naples, we should be proud of it. It's one of the best in the country. Again, there are jobs, and, people can work, and we just need to, whether it's the word is educate or inform people better on what they can do to change their situation. I think a lot of times when we get involved with folks, because one of the interesting things or the unique selling points of our organization is what we call the home visit. And so we go to where the people are, and we're in their environment, and we're in pairs, and we're just trying to assess really what's going on in their lives, and we work with them to figure out that plan. Again, always looking towards systemic change, trying to get people to a point that they can move on. And it's here where, sometimes it's just simple tweaks in what they're doing in their lifestyle, et cetera, that will enable them to get on a better path, or at least figure out, what tomorrow can look like. And financial literacy for folks, it's amazing how you think a basic budget or just understanding, you have so much money coming in, you can only have so much money going out. So how do you make those two meet, and what a challenge that is for folks, and how they get themselves caught up. And not all the time it's folks who are necessarily poor, or it's middle class, even let's say richer, they just don't understand and they get in trouble. Everybody seems to find at one point in their life or another to be in trouble, right? And you just always hope that there's somebody there to help, or there's a support system that you can go to that folks can get back on their feet.
Yeah, that's definitely in this area, because currently I'm in like a scenario where I do have affordable housing because I'm staying at the in-laws vacation home.
Very affordable.
Yeah, but it's true. And, the original plan when we first moved here was, all right, we're moving here in June, and we're going to, within 6 months, we'll have our own place. That was the plan. There was a lot of things that went into it, which was, well, I'm starting my own business. I completely forgot that I knew no one. So it's going to take a bit longer than I thought. But then also the crazy hike of the pricing of just living, real estate market's booming for sure, but houses have tripled in price in some areas, even to rent. It's funny because I look at the rent, and for me, I'm like, it's kind of the same as what I was paying back home for some places.
Really?
But to see where it came from gave me more perspective. Like, that's a big jump. And I remember them saying that when the housing market was booming, once that slowed down, the rent was going to do the same trajectory because it hadn't caught up yet. And that's what we're going to see with a lot of people struggling, was they now can't rent. One thing that I think is a problem with that is the Airbnb. So Airbnb is fantastic if you own a place. But I remember back in Miami, when I visited there 2 years ago, my friend, we were discussing Miami Beach, like that island, and all the regulations that they put on with Airbnb. You can only do it this amount of times a year, and these rules. And he was explaining the reason was that it's because it's becoming like what Venice is in Italy, where Venice is just everyone goes there, no one lives there because it's just become a museum city that's for tourists. And it feels like that's what's happening with Miami a little bit. You can't justify driving in to work at a $15 an hour place because you got parking, you got travel expenses, traffic there is terrible. So I wonder if that's happening here as well, because I know that when I speak to people, it's always buy a house and then Airbnb it. So, because that's the best financial move.
A good rate of return.
Yeah. And it's tricky because, we don't want the government involved with what we want. But it's like, the problem is, and I don't know what the answer is, we need these regulations to stop the erosion of the bottom, which is what we're doing. Like, we kind of keep eating the top because we're getting fatter from the top, that the bottom starts to erode, and then we're going to fall through it, because if the real estate keeps going up but no one can work here, no one's going to want to come here, the real estate will crash, because it's like, well, there's nothing to do here because everything's shut down.
Yeah. Again, we don't pretend to have the answers. We just recognize what the problems are and what the need is. But, to that argument, though, look at California. How long have people been saying that places in California that just can't keep going the way it's going?
That is true.
And it's like decades now, and we're still saying the same thing. It's going to collapse any minute, and it never does. So who knows? But I do think that
Just make sure you speak right into that.
Sorry about that. So I do think I think what happened with the pandemic and maybe a lot of the money that came into the economy and the way that it came in, a lot of the regulations. So you had landlords that were for basically 2 years, they were locked out to do anything to try to recoup revenues and whatever. Dynamics changed. And so now you have these same landlords. They're in the situation where, I can make a good buck right now, and I haven't been able to for a while, so we're going to do that. And I say this leading into, because one of the signs we're seeing is that it's families that their leases are due, and they just are not able to afford the increases that are now being imposed on them to release, right? To lease up again, and they're forced basically for the moments in time to not know where to go, what to do. They're homeless. And more people are just coming and saying, I don't know what to do. I can't figure it out. So there's a lot of dynamics and things going on. So I think, as far as the position that we are in at the St. Vincent DePaul Society is that I can't pretend that I have any clue to what the answers can be. We can just recognize that the problems are here and then just use the resources and what's available to point out to people in the best way that we can. So, and I think, one of the positives is that the job market is good, so people can find work. So is this an opportunity for folks that might have been on lower skill base to take a moment to increase the skills? So whether it's through education or whatever, and then look to work up. Right? Is it just taking a second job for now that you just have to, have that mindset that, I can't do it anymore at one job. I get it. It's not good for the family, whatever. But for the time being, I might have to do it just so I can get myself back into shape. And then, because once you're in shape, I think you're always better able to figure out what the next step's going to be. When you're not, it just becomes overwhelming and it just seems impossible. And then you're just stuck in that rut. So it's just trying to, get people to that point that just stabilize, right? And then once we stabilize, then we can have different conversations. So there are opportunities within the current environment, I think, that people can take advantage of, but it's just really, again, and I hope that's what we can do through the society is work with the folks so that we can point those out or at least figure out how those can be available. And then again, we're talking about one specific sector of the folks that we help, but it the gamut is all over the place, and there are many people, whether it be through mental illness or just disabilities, etc., that they're just stuck in a position, and there's not much that we can do to elevate. But so then, how do we help those folks in society? What are the things that we have to make available? And that's where other 501c, other charities really come into play, and we're all working together to collaborate to just figure out, again, this overall good health for everyone in society, right? We should be, we should all care about each other, really. And so, because if one is not doing well, it's probably going to hurt us, and it's not good for us as well. So there's a great benefit of all just collectively working together. And obviously our society is based on gospel values. So we believe in God, and we believe that we love people. So we promote it from that way. But maybe not everyone is in that mindset. But I don't think anybody could question that if everybody's working and fit and doing well, that can never be a bad thing. Right? It's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do we do that together?
Do you have like counselors and stuff on your team as well to help with any of that sort of uplifting? Yeah.
So we're a Catholic-based gospel values society. However, we don't impose any of our belief or our mindset on anyone, so we work with everyone, so it does not matter. However, if you're inclined to want to listen to us and would like to pray together, etc., we're more than happy to do that. So our society is made up of all volunteers. It's not all, but the majority of it, 95% of the work that we do is done by volunteers, and they come from the various Catholic churches here in Naples. They have St. Vincent DePaul conferences within the church, and these people help. And if they're working outside of the church, so like, I don't know if you're Catholic or not, but if you wanted to volunteer, definitely can get you in and working in our thrift store or our food pantry or our Meals on Wheels program, delivering, to homebound seniors. So we're very welcoming. So volunteers, regardless, the training comes in to be a Vincentian. Mm-hmm. So being a Vincentian is following in our patron saint, St. Vincent. He really just got dirty with the poor, right? He just worked where they were and was very creative in how he worked with the rich women of society in Paris to go out and get him the money he needed to build hospitals and get food and really help these folks. So Vincentians, we take a training program in following basically in his footsteps. I mean, the society was founded in 1833, I think is the year, by a gentleman called Frederick Osman. And he was challenged by local reporters at that time, and this is also in France, what basically was saying, so what is the Catholic Church doing for the poor? Can you tell me anything that they really do to help the poor? And Frederick, being a devout Catholic, really took this personally, and he had to agree. He was like, I don't know what I can point to other than we know that it's our service to help. What are we doing? And from that, he created the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in honor of St. Vincent and the way that he went into these barrios or neighborhoods of Paris and helped the poor folks. So I'm getting a little long-winded, but so we kind of, study that and understand what our background is, and only Vincentians really go out into the homes of people and provide this financial counseling. Or when you said, do we have, we're trained to do this or whatever, well, a little, but we as Vincentians go and just work with folks and come up with different plans or alternatives. And a lot of the times it's really just about people needing someone to talk to. Mm-hmm. Many times they know the answers, and it's just flushing it out with someone else to really, I guess, bring it home or whatever to get them motivated to move forward. Or, again, just having different sets of eyes looking at the same problem and maybe offering alternative suggestions on how to figure that out and move forward. And that's the Vincentian aspect. And I think on the volunteer side is where, and what I represent as the council that covers all of Collier County, is in the creation of our Meals on Wheels program, our food pantry, the aid we provide to the homeless. And, we also run thrift stores here, one in Naples and two in Bonita Springs. And
I went to one the other day, actually. I think I bought a few things.
There you go. Good. Yeah. So you supported the poor, but
a bunch of hats.
There you go. The best place to shop. And so here, so we can and help folks in starting their lives out with furniture, with clothing, people needing to go on interviews or whatever. We're going to set them out to the job market.
So you help them with job seeking too?
Absolutely. So on the council level, we provide various, I want to call them programs, but it's just various things that we can offer folks. And as we like to say, no neighbor is ever left behind. So if something comes to us that's really not within our normal, we will figure out something, whether it's either a recommendation or whatever. But we're gonna help the neighbor, and we're gonna do our best to again live the society's vision.
And at what point do you? Obviously, the goal is for them not to need your help anymore. Where do you have like an idea of when that point is? Is it like is okay? They can afford their apartment. They got a house now. They're able to provide food. Great.
Correct.
and that's basically when it's like, all right, great, you're not on your own, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
you're capable, you're
Well,
back on your feet.
Yeah,
you know.
this is so really that our interaction with the neighbor is very limited. So we don't create a long-term relationship in that we're following through.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have the interaction. We provide the necessary support to solve that immediate problem, and then in there we'll come up with a plan that should be followed. And we have a recognition that this person is going to be able to, moving forward, sustain themselves. And then we pretty much bow out, or we leave the neighbor on their own, to do what they need to do. Of course, many of our neighbors are repeat clients.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see them again. So challenges do arise, and people do need help. So we're there to try to support that. So if that answers your question of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So the goal really is to get them self-sufficient, not reliant.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're not just handing out. So I guess an important point is on the financial aspect. We are giving money, right? But we're not giving it directly to the neighbor. So the money goes to, whether it be the landlord to make sure that the rent was paid and they're going to be able to move forward, or for a utility bill, that's a problem, medical expenses, etc. So it's going towards something. We know what that problem is that causes them to be in this situation, and then we address that cause or that problem, and then hopefully that enables them to move forward. Yeah.
So the assisted living is like you're helping them wherever they live. For some reason I envisioned like you had a facility of like apartments that helped people out. Okay.
No, unfortunately, no. That would be great. No, we go to where they live. We do have a family center, and people are able to come in, and that's where we house our food pantry, and we run the operation for the Meals on Wheels program. But no, we go directly where they live.
Gotcha. And how does someone come about approaching you guys? What do you see is like their tipping point when they're like, you know what? Because I know I'm like one of those egotistical people where I'm like, no, I'll figure it out myself.
Well, that's it. That's most people.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I'm a lucky person who has a great safety net. I don't like having the safety net though. I want to get out of that as quick as possible. But I'd love to know, at what point do you tend to see people, you know what, I need to put up that white flag and just reach out to someone who I have no idea who they are,
right,
and ask for help?
Yeah. I mean, it comes in all different forms. So either people know about St. Vincent DePaul, so if we're helping folks within this particular housing complex, whatever word gets out, that St. Vincent DePaul, they've helped me, they might be able to help you. So that's a way maybe to communicate. Obviously through our parishes, we're working within the zip codes of those churches. So people have a way of finding us through the outreach we do on a parish level. We try to collaborate with as many other organizations or other denominations of faith, whatever, knowing that we have resources to help folks, and so that this is a way to come to us. We definitely want to market, and we want people to know that we exist and are available to your point, then rather than just suffering and waiting too long, because it's definitely too late when somebody has an eviction notice on their door, versus to say, let me just suck it up and let me talk to some people before I get to that point to see what I can do, how I can work out the situation. So we really want people to find us sooner than later, right? And open to everyone suggesting and having people come to us. It will be a lot of times you'll have friends and family that will refer the people because they're not able to help anymore or whatever, and they know that there might be another way, so they would find us. And I think us reaching out where we met in a business forum is really trying to talk more aggressively with the entire business community to say, hey, listen, a lot of these folks are your employees. their family members, could be your family members. And we just need to work together so that even that you can educate and we can work constructively, that they have a place to come to get that help so that they can get to work the next day or whatever. And so that would be another great resource for us to be engaged with a lot of the business community, to know that we are a support structure and start sending people our way so that we can help.
And definitely the understanding of how it works, because I know that unfortunately along the lines a lot of charities have tarnished the rest of their names in terms of, like, you know, people can be quite skeptical about where their money's really going. So it's great to hear that you guys help give the path, and then it's relying on the person to achieve it, but then there's still that safety net to come back. So with this area in particular, did you see an influx in people in need post or during / post COVID and the boom of real estate, or has it been a steady growth?
I think during the pandemic, actually, well, I shouldn't say that. The isolation part of the pandemic, and I know we were a little bit, say, better than other places. So like Meals on Wheels, those programs needed to be out there, and they were important, not only for the food and the nourishment, but just that human contact.
Yes, yeah.
That these folks, they're shut in anyway, and if we would have taken that away, oh my goodness, no contact with outside life at all. But people had, I think on the financial side, people had money in that the government was providing a lot of checks. So on that financial aspect, we slowed down a little bit. But now it's just picking up again big time, because landlords are able to set evictions, and they are establishing these different price structure, let's say, and so people are having a hard time. And I thought one of the most interesting statistics from the latest census that was done for Collier County, I guess that the federal government did, and as it relates to us here in Collier County, is that we have our poverty level is, at the time of the census, was I think at 10.2%. And I think it's actually even lower right now, which is good. I mean, it's good numbers. Our people are working. Our unemployment is one of the lowest in the country. So that's good. However, 1 in 4 people are just at one financial situation away from getting on that poverty line or below it. And
so 25%.
It's a lot. It's like 92,000 additional people every day are waking up and saying, well, you know, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Who knows? Something happens today, I'm in trouble. Yeah. And to your point before, is to getting the pride factor, is to getting people to admit that they, you know, so when that financial situation happens, or what do I do about this? Are there other options that I have to just, you know, proact to something that I know is teetering? And so that's hopefully where we're seeing more people, and we're going to try to help more people.
With the statistic of the poverty, you might be able to educate me on this. I've always, my understanding of it has been that that's just based on people that are applying for welfare, but it doesn't actually show the homeless that have completely not, you know, even applying for it. How do they figure out the poverty?
I think the census is based on they create a national poverty level. So whatever, it's a dollar amount. So let's say for just, I don't know the exact amount, but say it's $16,000. So a family or an individual would need to represent that they're able to sustain that or above. And if you're not making above that, you have to consider yourself below the poverty line. Well, but in order to get like grants and or funding, because that's so low.
That is like
so you would have to be, a lot of times it's 2 times the poverty line, or 2.5 times. So but one of the interesting things is that to live here in Naples, so just to really function based on, I guess, our economy, you really need to be making $25 an hour, or about $53,000 a year, right? Which a couple of years ago, 53, okay, it's okay.
Which is
but
still
now,
wild, because I don't know, maybe it's how I've been brought up. I'm like, I hear that number, I'm like, it's still so low. Like the business, for my business, I think I'm already over that line but I'm reinvesting like 50% of that. So I'm, teetering on it, and I've got help, so to hear a family, I think the average American family, and I know this is across 50 states with 50 different costs of living, to hear that the average household is like, I think it's $48,000 to $56,000, which I think it's the same in Australia when you factor in conversion. I don't know. I hear that and I'm like, how is that even possible?
And if they're living here in Naples, they're somewhat, just at that poverty.
Yeah.
Considered.
I think because I factor in like health insurance and all these sort of things that I think should be included in my lifestyle and paid for, that when I hear, oh, how can you afford health insurance and then food and then in real estate? And that's also, I think that's $53,000 before tax. Which when you hear, when you think after tax,
exactly.
It fascinates me that people survive off that.
And again, I do not want to suggest that any numbers I'm throwing out there, whatever's the professionals or we'll let them.
I'm going off Google.
Exactly. We let them
believe that as much as you want.
But we know it's a problem, and you can just see it. And again, when you listen to business leaders telling you meeting after meeting that they can't even get people to come in the door for $22, $23 an hour, when the current minimum wage here in Florida is still about $9.50, and then by I think 2024 will be up to $15. So when you're saying you're paying, and that you would think that that's a glorious thing. This is great, we're able to pay people competition, whatever. But still, that kind of money is not. Yeah. People still can't figure it out.
Is that because, like, I think I would have to look. I think stuff like franchises, for example. Let's look at something that's nationwide. They look at, we're offering 23 when we don't have to, but they're not looking at the area. So, for example, if you open somewhere in Bonita Springs near the beach, those people that are going to work there are not going to live there. So you need to attract someone who's prepared to drive
right now a good way.
Florida, a minimum of 45 minutes to and from work. Then there's another, I think they might not be considering those factors, because I know when I first moved here in Sydney, if you told me something was 20 minutes away, like my wife used to ask me to go to, she go, hey, for lunch, can we go to this place? I'm like, that's 23 minutes away. No chance. I don't have time for that. And now I get here and it's just like, that place is 23 minutes away. That's close.
That's great.
Awesome. Which again, that's why I created the podcast, because I was thinking all these face-to-faces, there's a lot of time involved in that I'd love to just, I'm going to just document my face-to-faces. And if people want to listen in and meet people without having to go meet them and then pre-qualify, I'll just do that, because the travel time in Southwest Florida is wild. I'm going to Fort Myers in a few days, and I'm like, that's so far away.
Yeah, this is funny.
That was a weekend away for me, if I can see.
I'm from New York originally, and
really?
I mean, an hour and a half commute is what's that? No.
Yeah. Well, I learned that when I went to LA for the first time. It was 45 minutes. I was like, man, that's close. That's very close.
Exactly.
Now, I think that's just America. Everything seems to be so far away that I've started.
Well, it's actually only like 20 miles, but it takes you an hour and a half to get there.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like New York's like that, 2 miles is half an hour away. But here even it's 3 corners. I'm surprised there's not more accidents, because every road here is a speedway, Like I look at the map and from a zoom out, it doesn't look far. I just go, okay. So I turn left onto 41 and then I go on the 75 or whatever. And 2 corners on there. Oh, that's 40-minute drive. Okay, great. So I think that's probably something I'd have to factor in, because now I even pay my hairdresser to come to my house, because I did the math in my head. I'm like, it's a half an hour drive. I get there, I have to wait. Like, even if you're there on time, so I was just finishing up with the person before. Cut your hair, half an hour drive back, right. Plus prices of gas. So it was $10 extra for her to come to my house, and it was that quick that I thought she hadn't cut my hair, because it was in my house, cut the hair out, 15 minutes, and it was $10 extra. Gas was probably $6 anyway. So I'm like, I only paid $4 for an extra hour and a half of my life. And I mean, I still tip her, but it was just this thing of, it started making me in this area I'm outsourcing as much as I can, because it's like time is most valuable, that if I can use that extra hour and a half to find the client, I'll have to invest that little bit extra to buy that hour and a half of my life.
And I think you bring up a great point, just in more general terms, is that we're all dealing with life so differently, so quickly, right? Than I'd say pre-pandemic to post, and we're thinking things, and I think that has a big effect on everything. And because even we were just talking about how much the hourly wages or whatever, but look at the employer. I mean, their costs have gone up tremendously. So they're affected by higher rents as well, and lack of staff. And, you hear people say, yeah, business is booming, it's great, but I don't have the people to handle it. So I don't see that revenue because I can't do it. So, and everything else has gone up. So in fact, you know what? Pre-pandemic was so much better. So I think there's so many different dynamics going on that people we don't really have our head around. And that's causing a lot of, until we figure it out, there's a lot of, I think there's stress. Yeah. And that's why folks like us are definitely important parts of the community, and, that our messaging has to be, so we're here to try to help. Right?
Yeah. So when you're helping people, is it like brick and mortar jobs seem to be the best ones for these particular people? Or do you get people that actually, different question, do you get people, I suffer from this at times, but I'm battling to push up. They think because they have this amount of qualifications, they don't want to take a temporary step back for a lesser job.
Sure.
Because they want to hunt for something else.
Sure.
I know I suffer from that. I've been told a couple of times, just get a job. I'm like, no, I can't do that. Do you get people coming in for you that you've noticed that battle within themselves as well?
Sure, absolutely. And then that's where the dialogue and the discussion at least goes, to try to talk to them about the benefits of, if what is the phrase? Anyway, it's to know the benefit of just something that can be guaranteed. Just take advantage of that, because usually what I found, and from personal experience, whatever, you get in an entry, something is always develops later on. So if so there's usually always opportunity. So that could be something you can suggest to folks. You got to step it down, but very short term, you probably can get to a level you were at or whatnot, because as long as you're talented and you have skills and you show that in the workplace, people tend to recognize and don't want that to go away.
Yeah, and you can build leverage. I said this in another podcast where, we're always this generation is being accused of, they're not loyal, they jump from job to job. We're in a weird time where you could just go into a job, build enough of equity to pay the bill, just break even with that job for a few months, but simultaneously be leveraging it somehow so that if this job doesn't want to give you a pay rise, there'll be another company going, hey, you're really good. We'll give you, instead of 60 grand a year, we'll give you 80 grand a year. And you just got $20,000 pay rise like that. And that's the cool thing about the internet is there's a lot more vultures out there now. I was trying to poach constantly, that I think there is, even in the hard times now, there's other opportunities that didn't exist before the internet.
Absolutely. And it's an excellent point, because there is a lot of opportunity out there, and it is just people sometimes just getting off your butt, and you have to figure it out, right? Yeah. Nothing's going to come to you easy, or at least in most cases. And I think that's the push that people don't I don't know how to. I was talking with my daughter last night, and she lives in California, and she was talking. I'm getting so tired of my friends. They're just so lazy and they have no ambition, and it's like, and here I am. I'm hustling, working hard, and they just seem to think that it's okay to not. And so this recognition that you have to work for it, right? So it just doesn't come to you, and you can't just sit back and wait and hope. No, it just doesn't work that way. So to your point, if there's something available, it's probably better to take that and then see where that goes. And then is it a bad thing that somebody is that talented that they can work somewhere else and somebody else is going to offer them $20,000 more? I don't know that that's a bad thing. And if that's what the work environment is, then I guess we have to work with that. And so my suggestion would be to folks is, well, can you take advantage of that? So, maybe you need to, rather than being comfortable in the place that you're in, it's time to look out to see if you're valuable out there in the environment. And then obviously, if people don't want to lose people, they're going to come back to you and say, well, I don't want you to go, so I'm going to give you 30. Or what do I got to do to make you stay? So I don't know. I think I'm a capitalist, right? So I think all this really works well if you leave it up to the folks. But I think we have so many other dynamics that go on and kind of interfere. People are confused, right? So, and you just don't know what the right rules are. And it's a lot about just educating or suggesting that there is, a different way.
Just make sure pull that right at it. Have a point right at you.
Okay, there you go.
It'll feel very awkward at first.
Okay.
You feel like you're at a recital.
Okay.
See, you sound so much better.
Yeah, there I am.
You got a great voice, actually.
Yeah.
It's a big ego hit for sure. The again, knowing what it's not even knowing what you're worth, it's knowing what you think you're worth sometimes. Gary Vaynerchuk has a great quote. He said once where it was more about going to an event, and this person's like, ugh, that event, it only has these type of people. He's like, well, your time's worth nothing right now. So go to that event and meet people to make it worth something. Or that job's below me. It's, well, you're earning nothing right now. Do that job, make some connections, build your value. But that's a big ego hit you have to take to yourself.
Yeah. Big
time. It's, have you noticed any, is it hard to get people past that line? Have you experienced getting them to just sort of take that initial short term, what they perceive as a hit, even though it's probably not a hit, it's probably a step forward or a step back to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, we mainly work with it's low income or minimum wage, and we're trying to, do the step up, right? So we're trying to really work with them to step up. But the folks where we have that they're out of work and they're struggling, and that's where we find that the reason maybe it's taking longer is because they're not willing to consider that backward step again. And it is, having that discussion. I think once you can present on paper with them the value of taking that job, whether if it's an individual or for the family, that this is really important for the well-being, you get a little bit more buy-in, right? And when we have, I would say, cases like that, there's lots of resources here within Collier County as well that you can point people to just also help them to make that decision. And maybe that the understanding that it can be short term, and these are the other steps they can take to get to a point where they feel. I think you were saying before you were egotistical. I think it's more dignity is probably a better word, right? Everybody has this sense of, to be dignified, that what is their dignity, what is their wealth, whether it be through their education, all the effort that they have put into life, right? You get to a certain point and it's very difficult to want to step down, I think. I don't know. I just think egotistical sounds like not such a nice thing, but it's natural. It's just, it's, you know, it's actually probably important. Ego is an important thing for everybody.
Yeah. I think people think of ego and they think of the egotistical part.
Right.
Ego is just our belief. And that's how I view it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's not a bad thing. I just, again, if people can talk it through, and recognize that, you know, certain things are not really that bad, or it's not, then yeah, it helps. So I would hope that we have a lot of success when we talk to folks like that, because we definitely realize that any job is better than
no job,
not having a job.
Yeah.
And so to this notion today that, well, even if I take a job at $15 an hour, but really it doesn't pay for everything, but it pays for something. And it just gives you at least a basis point. And I think just working in itself is of such great value. It's just so important to one's, again, ego, or to one's
self-worth.
Well-being, self-worth, absolutely. And for me, any type of job, it doesn't matter. If you're working, you're valuable, man. And you should be proud of yourself. And then you just, you know, if that's not exactly what you want to do, well, then you try to figure out long-term. But you definitely need to do something.
Yeah. And so with the people that you're helping in Collier County, the jobs that they're looking for right now, are they looking typically at like franchises, food, restaurants?
Correct.
And from what you're seeing, what are the hurdles that they're getting? Because people are saying that they can't hire anyone, which it's weird. I was saying this to someone on the flight here. It's strange that you can't buy a house anywhere without it being sold within 5 days.
Right.
But you can't find a business that isn't searching for people. There's a weird thing happening where it seems like everyone has money to buy houses, but no one has the time to work.
Right.
It's very bizarre.
Or they're working from home. So isn't this the phenomenon here in Collier County that people have recognized that, now everyone can work from home. Working from home is a great thing. So why not move down to someplace beautiful, comfortable?
Yeah. Well, I just hired someone from Miami. I've never even physically met her, but she does the clips for this podcast, and I just go, here, boom, send it. Because I just fired a guy from Atlanta who I never met either. So it's... And that's why like I go back to the dynamics are just changing. And so this full understanding of exactly what's happening and how it's all happening, I guess still has to be digested. But for us, at the end of the day, there's still people knocking on our door, ringing our bells because they're in trouble and they don't have a clue on really how to figure it out. Yeah. And so I think to your question, you know, we're seeing people, and again, we're always going to recommend working, and we have great now ability for people to find good work, right? Yeah. And so then we can address the immediate problem. So if it is that they can't pay the rent anymore, so they're being evicted and the rents now are too high, well, then that's really the problem. And so how do we address that with them and try to fix it? And like you said, in many cases, you know, you recommend that maybe Collier County is not the best place. You need to look to Lee County, but I don't even know that Lee County is any different. Apparently Lee County is the
keep
fastest
moving
growing.
them. I know we keep moving them further and further away. So it's a dynamic, or it's what are we trying to start to tell people? That if you have kids and they're of an age, maybe they need to get a part-time job too for the time being to help the family situation. And I don't know that things like this kind of conversation is that talked about anywhere. I mean, we're worried about that. We just want to we can't make enough money. I'll just sit home. It's easier, and I'll just collect whatever.
I think everyone likes to blame the payments from the government, but there's a lot more money now on the internet, which, I mean, don't get me started. It's obviously, my whole thing is based in that, but it's also more made up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I hired a girl from Miami. I send her some digital made up stuff, which is why I laugh about when people laugh at crypto. It doesn't make sense. I'm like, I just sent a make-believe thing just because it was through a bank who's like, this is legitimate. We believe that. it's all going virtual, but we're again, like the housing, the problem with the erosion of the bottom, brick and mortar, it's harder to make money there for some reason. That it feels like those brick and mortar places are going to struggle too, because there's all this digital thing happening.
Yeah.
And with the people working, I lost where I was going with that.
Yeah.
I had a point, but I'd lost it.
So there you go. That happens all the time. And you're too young for that, actually.
It happens at times. I'm too hydrated, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're just hanging out with too many older people here in
Maybe.
Collier.
That could be it. Yeah. I'll get my walker later. But yeah, no. So the hiring, it was something to do with work. Yeah, it'll come back to me eventually.
Well, but
single families. That was the question. So with single families, because I was thinking the whole time, I was just thinking families, but then single parent families.
Yeah.
There's
Huge.
a lot that goes into that, which is, I mean, not only do they have to work, pay for the bills, and then somehow juggle the kids' lives.
Well, that's a huge issue.
How do you end up helping with those scenarios? Because, I mean, now not only do they have to make ends meet for the bills, they need to also make ends meet for the people who are going to look after their kids, which is a whole other stress.
I don't know that I have an answer to that question other than the same as just, to that scenario, single parents, especially women. So women tend to be mostly the single parent. And for whatever reason, whether it's the husband or significant other has abandoned them, or so there's usually child support is usually not existing or given, never mind, an alimony or whatever.
What's the difference between alimony and child support?
Well, alimony is just a stipend that a husband pays to the wife, right? Or it could be the other way around, the wife, because of the earning potential that they both had together collectively, and to balance that out so that people's lives are kind of equal. And then obviously child support is just the basic needs in order to raise those kids.
Okay.
But anyway, so now we went into a...
Sorry, I've always
heard a discussion on...
I've never known those different. I never knew there was a difference. I thought alimony was just looking after the wife.
And again, I have no
kids.
expertise, so anything I say just is what I'm saying. But so they're in that position, and we had the one case, and I think it was the case that I brought up with you that always makes me emotional. Is a young woman, and a very talented, smart woman, worked in a bank, and but because of her husband leaving her and leaving her with a disabled child and a small child, she really struggled to try to figure out how she can work and whatever. She couldn't do it, so she used up all her savings, and she was just in distress, right? So it's a beautiful story at the end, and it's one that I say that I truly believe that the Holy Spirit was with us on that call and with this mother. And because when we came in and provided, so we were able to help her with her rent for the month and some utilities, and we worked on a plan of what she was going to try to do in finding employment moving forward so that she can, still stay home with the children. And when she went down to talk to the landlord, whatever, the building complex that we were going to help, and this was her portion of the rent, etc., they were like, well, what's going on with you? And she told her story, and they found a job for her. And she was able to work within that same complex, able to put the daughter and the son on the bus, get them to school, and then come back, and it just worked out beautifully, right?
Beautiful.
So I use that as an example because usually somehow there's a solution out there, right?
Yeah.
You might not see it. It's not visible, but usually there's some way to make it work, right? And that's what we got to try to do, to work with people.
That's the trick.
And
It's like
utilize the
sometimes finding that one
resources.
person, isn't it? It's just finding that one person that kickstarts everything.
And just moves it forward, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I was thinking when you were talking about kids working, like I started working when I was 14 and a half.
Same here.
But I was putting myself in, I think I got driven sometimes but I also just got the train because I could. And again, my family's well off back home, but there was something about Sydney. I was catching trains to school at the age of 12. You know, like there's some here. It's like you tell people that and like, what do you mean? Whereas
I did too.
Yeah, I blame the the available urgency of communication now. I'd go to school at 12. Phones didn't really come in until I was 15, but I watched my anxiety and my mum go up as an exponential curve. Because when I was 12, I'd leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. She wouldn't even know if I was dead. Because it's this 12-year-old. Bye, 7 a.m., go to school, 2 trains and a bus to get to school. Go to school, come back, bus, 2 trains, walk home. I'd get home at 4:30. So I've been gone for, 9.5 hours? If I'm half an hour late because I missed the train, she'll be, oh, did you miss the train? Yeah, I did. As soon as I had my phone, it was anxiety through the roof, because if I missed my train and didn't text her about it, she'd be freaking out. But I never did that before the phone.
Yeah.
And
you'd have to find a phone booth. Do you remember phone booths?
Yeah, I do remember them. They were great. You did 1-800 reverse was our thing back there, so you could reverse charge. Or you could do like star 69 hash or something, and you could find out who called you.
Yeah. That's later on.
That was high tech. But yeah, there's something that's happened lately where we expect the kids to tell us everywhere we're going, or everywhere they're going. And I think there's been a huge thing where now I feel like there's some opportunities being stifled for kids, and this is like a tangent of a conversation, but the thought of putting your child to work at 15, they can't drive yet, so hey, just get this bus and go to this place. Now, that's unheard of, because the place is so dangerous. The world is dangerous.
Right.
I don't think
we don't trust anybody.
It isn't any more dangerous. No. Yeah. We see a lot more. Could you imagine a news story? Hey guys, 99.999% of the children arrive safe at school. No one's going to click on that. Versus this one child went missing in the whole. That happened before, just didn't make the news.
Yeah.
But how old? This is another tangent. How young can kids work in Florida? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think like 16, 17.
Really, that old?
Yeah.
Ours is 14 and 9 months.
Well, again, I don't even know that rule. But back when I was a kid, 14 was, but you had to get a work permit, right? So you'd have to get these permits, and then you can work at a younger age and whatever. But I believe like 16, 17 is probably an age where, people can go out and expect to get a job.
Isn't it funny when you think back at that? I was 14 telling people in their 50s or 60s what shoes they should buy. Yeah. Could you imagine a 14-year-old telling you like, hey, sir, this is really good for your arch? Like, what?
And you sold them.
I don't know how. I was getting paid $6 an hour. It's funny so how funny. We go and work, but then it's like, I can't take you seriously. It's like, but you want me to work?
Exactly.
And like flipping burgers, I think that's what's amazing about franchises. If they've figured out how to create a whole business where 90% of the staff are 15-year-olds.
Well, but that's the way it was. These jobs at these lower wages were entry jobs, or they were for retired folks, right? That just needs a supplement income, and it worked really well. So kids, to work, I worked in Arthur Treach's Fish and Chips. Probably never heard of it, but I was a fry cook, and I think back then it was like $2.25 an hour or something ridiculous, and horrible job. I stunk to high heaven. I grease and fish and whatever. But the things you learn, even at that young age, in what it takes to run a business, because you're still involved in everything, right? You're doing the task, but you're, and today, a kid to work in McDonald's, it's like you said, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm going to college or whatever. I'm not working in McDonald's. So there is a change, but the reality is that those jobs are available today, and they're paying a certain level, even more now. And that will help you pay some bills.
Yeah.
And is that really a bad thing for a child, whether, it be someone 16, 17, or a college kid who's home still is it really that bad in order to support the family and make sure that you can sustain yourself until you guys collectively can figure out, what you need to do moving forward?
It could build a good team mentality for a child very young too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I worked for myself, made the money, spent the money on dumb stuff. Didn't really teach me much, but it'd be interesting to see, because you hear about.
Well, you just said it. You spent it on dumb stuff. You knew what that is. So,
whereas coming out, you hear about everyone like that is successful. 90% of them have come from crazy adversity. That I'd wonder about if your kid was to go and work and then contribute to the family's income, they developed more of a communal mindset instead of a individual mindset, which could be beneficial long term. So there's other things. I mean, that's stuff that most people don't really want to think about.
Right. But also, you talk about culturally, etc. I mean, families took care of families, say, 30, 40 years ago. And we see that now, that's just not, it's just not the same thing. So there are people who are very lonely, and they do have children in other parts of the state or whatever, and they can't rely on them or can't count on them for any kind of support. So I don't, Well,
it's because everyone moves out now. When I was speaking to John McKillicuddy, his family is like 50 people, and they all live within, I think, Sarasota to here, which it's so bizarrely rare in America. Yes. Like in Australia, for someone to move interstate is kind of unusual. Like my sister's thinking of doing it. Poor parents. They have 2 kids. One moves to the other side of the world. One moves to a different state. And a different state is far in Australia.
Yeah, sure.
But here it just seems extremely normal. It's to be, all right, I've got 1 kid living in this state, 1 kid living in that state. Because of, I guess, you can't, I mean, if you grow up in Naples area, very few kids are going to stay there. They're like, well, no, I want to go to this area where it's younger, or it's, my dream is to be a comedian, so I'm going to go to New York. Right. There's a lot more opportunities to move places.
Yeah, and again, it was, as I say, from my parents, that, that was the goal, right? That you worked hard and you gave them education, whatever, so that they can take their wings and they can fly and do what they want to do, right? So that's what's happening. And, I definitely have developed that even further with my kids or whatever. But what is the consequence of that? And there is, I mean, I won't admit this to my parents because I moved out and whatever, but I don't like that my children are across the country from me, whatever. My son's in Atlanta. But, it would be better if they were close by. And I think it's a comfort thing. And again, and just relating it to what's going on with what we see here in the community is that people are alone. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have family. It's just that they're not close by and or engaged to want to see that their elder is being taken care of or doing well. And that's a really sad thing to see.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the internet's doing as well, because we can easily do touch points. That the thing of moving isn't that crazy. Like me moving over here, social media's been great for me because I have touch points with all my friends all the time, basically on a daily basis. And it doesn't have to be something crazy like a big conversation. It's just they'll post something, I'll comment on it, or I can't believe this, or haha. Just a little touch point daily with friends other side of the world. That I wonder if that allows people to justify the move as well. Like, we'll still chat.
Yeah. I mean, engagement's good. And if they are engaged, but I mean, just taking it that you have a parent, right, who's in trouble. I don't know. I think certain cultures would say, I don't care where you are. You're going to get your butt and you're going to get to your mother or your father, and you're going to figure out how you're going to take care of them. And if it means that you're going to put them on a plane and they're coming back with you, I mean, it seemed that was a given, or that was an expectation But now, no, it's we have created, or we are a society of me. And it's what's good for me and how is it going to affect me. And yeah, that's good, but I think we also need to be thinking about others. And so never mind our neighbors or strangers, but even our own family.
Yeah, it's tricky because I think your family is also the ones that you argue with the most too. It's like that love-hate relationship. Yeah. But that's good. No, that's cool. So when people are trying to reach out to you, is there like a process? Do you help just anyone that comes into the doors, or is it like...
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, we call it an intake process. So people will come in and there's certain questions we ask. And depending on what the need is, they get referred probably to a different location. So if people are just really coming in for food or on the homeless and they're just looking for whether it be a bicycle or they need just a fresher kit, they just really need to whatever. So that would be handled immediately in the family center. If it's financial need, then that gets parlayed out to the various conferences depending on zip code where the person happens to be living, etc. And then they are interviewed by the Vincentians that go in pairs. And again, we pretty much don't leave any neighbor behind. So you might not get everything that you think you need or want, but we're definitely going to be providing some kind of a support for you.
Yeah, that's cool. And with people donating stuff to you, I've got two questions. One, basically they just drop it off to you, correct? And it's just you guys siphon through it and...
Correct. So we have one of the great ways for both donation and helping people in need is through furniture. So St. Vincent DePaul will pick the furniture up. So we have trucks, etc., that will come, and you can just call us, and we'll come and we'll take the stuff from you and bring it in. It either gets sold or it gets used for poor families or people in need, right? As far as clothing and household items, anything manageable, then you would just drop it off at one of our thrift stores or even our family center. We will take it and we'll just take it from you and bless you for thinking of others. And
so the second question, you don't have to answer it. What's the weirdest thing you've ever been, like someone's left in the bin for you?
Yeah, we won't answer that question. We hope that, people understand that this stuff, we're accepting the donations because we either need to resell it or to give it to somebody else to be able to use, right? So just be mindful of that when you're leaving stuff, because a lot of people think, oh, it's just great. And, dirty clothes, soiled clothes or
soiled clothes.
Yeah. Just whatever they can get rid of, they're just saying, just that I have to get rid of stuff. Yes. Bags of stuff, maybe never gone through it for a while and just expecting us to do that kind of stuff. But no, what we just ask respectfully, respectfully that, you understand what this is for. And I think it's a great point about our society is that we have the thrift stores and we have some paid staff and administrative costs, but we're blessed that the stores can take care of those costs for us. And so when we are out there asking for donations, which I do, and asking for grants, et cetera, that those monies are going 100% towards the programs that we run. So the physical purchasing of the food or the clothing or whatever we need to run the program. And I think that's a really great thing about how we are able to set ourselves up here in Naples.
Yeah. When I went to the thrift store in Bonita Springs, first of all, Bonita Springs, well-off people. Let's just paint that picture. I get in there, everything is so cheap. I'm like, $1 for this, $2 for that. This is my opinion. There was one lady who was just haggling. And I was there going, is this lady for real? Like, to the point where my wife, we got in the line, there was 2 people only. This lady and my wife. And we were there. I was there so long that I took my daughter outside because I'm like, I'm about to yell at this lady, because it was something like, I think you guys even had a special, like it was 25% off, but this wasn't included, and this thing was only like $30. So she are going over $7 for a place where the money goes to people helping in Bonita Springs, which is a well-off area, and chances are you're not well off. You're not doing it tough if you're living in this particular area. It was that long where I was just like, I went outside, carried, I'm like, I got to stay. So I'm like, I had to leave. She goes, I saw it in your face, because it was a solid 20 minutes, over $7. I'm like, you probably earned 10 times that in that time for what, from investments. So my hat goes off to the people behind the desk dealing with that stuff. Because I know this is why I probably don't work with you guys. I would be like, just leave. I don't want your money. I'll pay for it myself. Like, yeah. So,
I don't have much of a comment there.
No, but I will. And I'll be like, please guys, don't haggle when you go to there. Because I was astounded at how cheap it was, to be honest, and how affordable, because we got it for a bunch of, we went there to find a bunch of random items, which thrift shopping is great,
right? Exactly.
You're like, someone actually wore this seriously? I'm buying it to wear it, like, ironically. There's a whole song by Macklemore, thrift shopping. And what is it? So we went there to buy a bunch of hats for some videos we were filming later on, where it was like I would just randomly have a different hat each take, so continuity wise was completely off. And I got this whole pile. It was like $6 for a bunch of hats. I was like, wow, okay, fantastic. So thrift shopping,
and that $6 helped 2 Meals on Wheels. So there you go.
Wow, 2. That's crazy. That is interesting. I wouldn't have thought it went that far. That's real cool. And so with
maybe 1.5. Okay,
that's still pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know. I eat one steak at the moment. With inflation, it's $13. That's
I mean, and that's what obviously, it takes a lot of money to run the programs, the programs. But anything that people can contribute, it does help. It obviously does help. So never think that $6 or $10. Please just give it.
Yeah, and definitely just, I mean, it also feels so good to get rid of that stuff. From my side of view standpoint, when we were in West Virginia at my wife's house, she had closets of clothing where I was like, okay, you don't need this anymore. It was stuff from years and years ago. Right. It was probably 4 bags that were good up to my, like, here on my sternum if I held them upright. Getting rid of them, like this lift of not only like, okay, these are going to go to people that actually need / want them,
right?
But 2, on a selfish point of view, the energy lifting in my house of not having all this stuff. Even Stace, because she goes through this emotional thing all the time where I have to really put the squeeze on, going, do you really need this? No. And you can see it's like I feel like I'm telling off my wife like a bad child. And so we went through this process, getting rid of all these things, because you get unjustifiably attached to this stuff. Yeah. Like, you see it,
it's not logical.
You haven't even thought about it for 2 years, and you're like, oh, I really like that. Then you put it in your closet and you leave it for another 2 years.
For me, it will fit again one day.
Yeah, but
that's gonna happen.
That feeling of just getting rid of that stuff, and even like, because I said to her, she's like, oh, but I could sell this on whatever website, $1 here, $1 there, and I go, it's not worth your time. It's like, to do $1 here, $1 there, just give it to someone else.
That's really gonna,
and that will help, versus the hours required to curate photos, put it up, mail it all over for that. When I just said to her, I'm like, nah, get rid of it. I think we got rid of a good over 100 garments.
Yeah,
and it was best feeling. So much room in the house after.
And again, somebody else is really gonna appreciate it.
Yeah. You've motivated me to go thrift shopping for fun now.
There you go.
Yeah, never know what I'll find.
And then you find great. Our thrift shop at in Bonita. The second one is
is that the one on Bonita Beach Road?
On Bonita Beach Road, yeah. All right, past 41. And what do they call it? It's the upper end type of shopping, and it's amazing the stuff they have in that.
Some of the pillows.
Yeah, I can't think of
unique.
The boutique shop. So there's a lot of good stuff. We live in a great area, so the stuff that's getting donated is usually great quality, and it's good value for folks. And during COVID, we definitely saw an uptick in people visiting because of supply chain, and so people getting new furniture or whatnot wasn't that easy.
Yeah.
So people coming in, whether it be temporary or just finding a different solution to get that couch or that chair that they needed or whatever. So.
Yeah, some of the furniture in there was really interesting. We just didn't have a house to put it in.
Right.
But I can tell you when we move out, I'm going to have to shackle my wife or something, because she's always like, well, get this. And I'm like, okay, great. But I don't know how this is all going to go together in the house, because she loves going there. So I'm going to have to control her a little bit.
Okay. Well, not too much.
Not too much. But yeah, cool. No, I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
That was already just almost an hour and 20.
Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
It flies, man.
So for anyone trying to reach you, what would be the reason they wanted to reach you particular versus reaching out to just St Vincent DePaul in general, actually?
So I'm the development director for St Vincent DePaul, so I'm here to bad word, take your money. We're going to take your money, and we gladly, for donations. Not being funny now. And that's what we're here to do. So please reach out to me. You can just get me at C. Monticelli at svdpnaples.org. Or call us, so I can give my phone number, 239-355-0440. And we can talk about different ways that you can donate. What about collaborations?
Is there anyone in particular you're looking for that, instead of just so we've got donation ideas, what about people that you could reach out to you to be like, hey, I have this subsection of people that could help, or people that need help? Is there anyone in particular that would come to mind? Because you said you went to business.
Right, I think, yes. So businesses, but I mean, we're collaborating, as an example, with Healthcare Network, right? So they offer a service. So obviously we're talking and dealing with neighbors, and then they might have other needs. And so it's great that we have this collaboration with Healthcare Network to provide them some, good features for healthcare, especially for childcare. They do an excellent job. And, coming up with the affordability aspect of, charging people what they can afford, et cetera, or it being, based on real need, complementary. I think faith-based organizations, again, to understand that St. Vincent DePaul might suggest a religious or Catholic church aspect, which we're proud of. However, we want to work with everybody. So if you have folks that you're not able to manage, or they have specific needs you can't, please be calling us and talking to us and see how we can help. And I think I mentioned that earlier. It's really important that all the 501Cs or charities out there, that we just understand what the other is doing and work together, because we're all trying to provide beautiful things for the community. And where we can work with each other, it's always a benefit. Obviously, in my line of work, we're all competing for the same donors, the same pool of people to help. And we'll continue to do that, but we also have to work together and just, utilizing the resources and making sure we're helping the neighbors, because that is ultimately why we do it, right? It's that end result to make sure that people are being taken care of, and they're able to function well within society, and that's just a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, it's nice that you call them neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a unique, I haven't heard that before. It feels a lot more homely and a lot more of a connection. Love thy neighbor.
Absolutely.
I've caught that a few times. You said, I'm like, that's real nice.
No, absolutely, because that's what they are, really.
Yeah.
And if you put labels on people, then it just means something different. And so I'm glad that's how we refer to our whatever. They're our neighbors.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you for
very
this.
much. Cheers to the end.
Cheers. Yes.
All right, guys. Make sure to subscribe and contact Carl whenever you can. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. So you're very good at this.
Thank you.